and that attire happens to be the human anatomy. So our innate nature happens to be spiritual, and once we got onto this stage, we have put on this anatomy called the human anatomy. And along and during the divine play, we are to uncover, discover the uniqueness, the wonderment, the mystery in having taken this human anatomy. That would be the purpose from the spiritual perspective. Otherwise, we were somewhere, we were comfortable. We happen to be the fulfilled entity. So if we happen to be here, there has to be a specific purpose. So in utilizing the faculty of the sixth sense to its optimum, we are to uncover, discover the uniqueness, the wonderment, the mystery in having taken this human anatomy. So that was the purpose for which we have come into being. But then, ladies and gentlemen, along and during the divine plane, the intellect lost track of its original intention. When I say intellect, I am referring to the faculty of the sixth sense. Whereas the lower beings, they are only endowed with five senses, we say. The five senses, namely touch, taste, smell, hearing and sight. Animals endowed with the five senses. Now the lower beings, you find that if you analyze, they are all supportive for our intellectual evolution. That's the purpose for that creation. And there is also another saying which goes like this: survival of the fittest. I'm sure that saying is familiar to you. Survival of the fittest. Now we have readjusted that saying a little bit. The saying survival of the fittest applies only to the animal kingdom. The saying survival of the fittest only applies to the animal kingdom. As far as mankind is concerned, all can survive. Question of survival doesn't arise. All can survive. But the fittest, open, close, inverted comma, the fittest will live magnificently. So we have added on something else to that caption. The saying survival of the fittest only applies to the animal kingdom. As far as mankind is concerned, all can survive. But the fittest will live magnificently. In utilizing the faculty of the sixth sense to its optimum, then the fittest will make a lot of sense. The term fittest. It's a very rare privilege to have taken a human birth. And the question is, are we living up to that proverb? That's the question. So we are in spirituality, we are to probe that area. As I said, spirituality in a very simple, yet from the layman's perspective, is called realizing. When we talk about realizing, it is something internal. It's not external. Rationalizing is different from internalizing. So it's internal. So realizing means it is to be inwards. So when we talk about the mind dynamics, we have the conscious mind, we have the subconscious mind and the unconscious mind. Most often, analysis show, research shows, you can safely say 97% of mankind, their intellect happens to be functioning at the conscious level. The intellect functions at the conscious level through the filters, the five senses. Meaning, they are only onto gratification of oral needs. Sensual pleasure, we call it. And that's what the material plane is all about. So 97% of mankind, they are onto the sensual pleasure, and that's it, through the filters, the five senses. Whereas, as I said, the 97% of mankind, they don't get to realize what is in store for them inwards, at the subconscious and at the unconscious. So by utilizing the faculty of the sixth sense to its optimum, then we are given an opportunity. The intellect is given an opportunity to dive within, to the subconscious and to the unconscious. Now what lies at the subconscious? Now we call the entities at the subconscious and the unconscious as divinity. Divinity within. Hence God realizing that we have to take that inward journey to the subconscious and to the unconscious. At the subconscious level, when you enter the heightened state of consciousness, and incidentally, the perfect tool for spirituality, when you talk about spirituality, to realize that God entity, the perfect tool for spirituality happens to be meditation. This word meditation. It's a word which is commonly used these days, meditation. But many people, they don't get really to know the impact of what meditation is all about. It's generalized as meditation being just close your eyes and then just concentrate on some area and that's it. Now we need to understand the fundamentals, the concepts of meditation before we get a hands-on meditation. Now the way we define meditation, there can be several ways whereby you can define meditation. One of the ways we go about defining meditation is to enter heightened states of consciousness called alpha, theta or delta, and to focus at specific centers of consciousness known as chakras. Meditation is to enter heightened states of consciousness known as alpha, theta or delta, and to focus at specific centers of consciousness known as chakras. So we have these entities called chakras in our anatomy. Rotating vortices kind of disc format. As such, the word chakra has been used. Chakra means simply rotating disc, the Sanskrit word chakra. So this vehicle, this tool known as meditation, takes us inwards. To realize that God entity, the divine entity, we have to make use of that tool called meditation, to go inwards. So such, what lies at the subconscious and at the unconscious? As I said, 97% of mankind, they happen to be operating at the conscious level. Through the filters, the five senses, and that's it. They feel, they think they are comfortable what's going on externally. But then along and during the processing, the divine play as we call it, then suddenly he finds that though he has all this material domain in him, in his possession, yet there is something lagging within him. When ultimately people, the so-called successful people, when you talk to such people, when you say successful people, what do you mean by success? Now, most often the benchmark, the yardstick to measure success is usually a material domain, material wealth. And the people think that that is success.